This is Brandon Turns Wrenches, and I'm Brandon. Today, we have a 2007 Nissan Murano, and we're gonna be knocking out the alternator. Now let's tear into this. And we'll get this hood opened up. Now the alternator's down there somewhere, mixed in with all this crap. We gotta take this radiator out and the side wheel, just to be able to get the bolts and pull this sucker out the top. To make it easier, we're gonna jack up both sides, and we're gonna use our safety jack stands here. A lot easier for us to drain the cooling system and have some room to be able to get under there if we need to. You know how it goes. We got our jack stands up and our jack still under there. We're gonna loosen this little screw here for the radiator and drain the cooling system. This is probably just gonna splash me, but hey, whatever. Save that screw off to the side so we don't lose it. Actually, maybe the problem is I didn't take the cap off. So we're gonna let that drain a couple minutes. All these tabs on here are pretty much gone and missing, but we're gonna pull this part of the air duct out. And we'll just set it up here on the windshield. So I didn't need to take this off, but I did just to be able to see a little bit better. The radiator actually clips off. There's just a couple pop clips and this thing just pulls off. You can take the fans and the radiator out as one piece. You just unclip them from the harness and get the harness off the plastic. But right here on each side is two clips where the radiator just slides in. You just pry those out and then you're gonna pull forward on the radiator. We'll work our first upper hose off here. This is the overflow hose for the reservoir. All right, so I use a little clip, but that's how I get my harness off the plastic. There we go, a little funny clip there. So this is what the fan harness looks like. Once you get it undone and unclipped, just throw it to the side. Now we're gonna get this lower radiator hose off where we pull the whole unit out. And there we go. So I wanted to show you guys how these clips came off to slide this radiator out. You just pry them out like that. You can pull these off the top, set them on top of the motor, their side. You just pull a little bit and pry, and they'll slide right off. You can't forget about these oil lines. I like to pinch them off first so they don't drain out of the motor. And give it a nice little tug. And there you go. See, now that it's pinched, not much is gonna come out. The two of them, make sure you clamp them up. This one's gonna be a little bit harder to pull. And if you do spill fluids, have like a bucket or something to catch them underneath. Fortunately, or unfortunately, we have to take this battery out to pull the radiator out. Otherwise, we might break something. We're not trying to break anything. So we'll get this battery out of here and take the battery tray out, and then we'll see from there. You gotta take part of this stupid air box out just to be able to get to the battery tray bolts. But they are 12 millimeters. There's two of them, and I lost my socket. Got one in that corner, and then one in this corner. And the other one. Kind of push this off to the side a little bit. Now we're gonna work the radiator out of here. All one piece. So the reason why we had to pull the battery tray out is because this part of the radiator fan system was hitting the bottom of the tray and it just wouldn't allow us to come out. Disconnect the alternator, move the clip. What you can see here, show you what's bad. And this alternator fried, big time. If I can get the clip out, holy shit. There we go. So if you guys look down in here, the alternator piece is actually broken out. I had to come out here and replace this clip because some other dude came out and crushed it and broke that part. But the alternator turned out to be fried. We also disconnected the compressor. We got this harness. We're moving this out of the way as well. Let's get this wheel out of the way. So here's the evidence from the last guys who crushed the clip and fried the alternator. So there's like a belt tensioner screw on here. It's right here. And then we're gonna have to take the pulley off the side to get the alternator bolt on the bottom out. Guys, this is a prime example of why you don't hire somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. So I ended up having to actually cut the tip of the pulley stud off. Somebody had cross-threaded this nut on there real bad. So the last guys, lied to the client and said, oh, it's just your connector. So they broke the connector after they stripped the bolt out. And then yeah, left it for us new guys that are actually licensed and have the ability to do this stuff. So luckily I was able to cut this off. And then I used the pry bar to wedge it in between, and I just pried on that sucker, and the last bit of stud threads that it had, they just popped right off with it. So the bottom bolt, after we broke the tensioner off because we had no choice, the nut that holds this bottom one on is right there. It's a 14. You want to get the right size socket for it. To get this top bolt off here, it's a 12. Once you get it free, unscrew it by hand, and I just dropped it in the coolant. But I got the bottom 14 millimeter off, and there's a stud that runs through it. Like I said, the stud is at the back of the alternator. Once you pull it out, it's a pain in the ass. But now, out with the old, and with the new. So once you get the bottom bolt in, that long one, that's a pain in the butt. You gotta get your 12 back in the top here. Tighten down as best as you can. Always start by hand. Now that's nice and tight. We're waiting on the pulley to get here. The owners went and gone and picked one up. Now we can put the pulley in. Basically, this is the bracket here. I took the pulley off because you have to take it off to get these mounting bolts in. These 3 bolts right here, they're all 12s. They go in the bracket 1, 2, and 3, and they mount on the side of the block. We got one in. Now we need to get this bottom one in here. The pain in the butt, but you can make it work. If I can make it work, you can make it work. All right. I like to use a small 1/4-inch magnetic socket and stuff, because when you're in a tight area, you know, in a tight area, you can't get anything bigger in. And the last one's at the top. Y'all can't see it. That's okay. Or maybe you can. There we go. Right there. And then we can get this pulley set free. Put the belt back in before we completely tighten that tensioner. This goes up and over the alternator. And we're on. All right, so we have to tighten the belt before we tighten the pulley all the way down at the bottom. So there's a stud here with the tensioner tightened right there. I use a swivel socket and a long extension. Don't have to go too tight with this, but do it a little bit and then check the bottom. Now that all that fuckery is done, we can put the radiator back in. This thing should set down in pretty easy, as long as you don't catch it on anything plastic. Get the bracket back on. The other bracket. Slap these bad boys back in, make sure the fans are plugged back up. We'll get this upper hose on, and then we'll get the bottom one on with the 2 oil cooler hoses. That's on. Now we can't forget these 2 oil lines, or else we will lose all the oil of the vehicle once we start it. Boop. Last oil line. All the hoses are done. We can get this drain bolt back in. This is that plastic Phillips head one. It's for battery tray bolts. This battery is dead. There we go. Can't forget the wheel. After the wheel, we can get the coolant in there. Time to get the coolant in. Battery's completely dead, so we're gonna have to jump it. Get your negative on and your positive on, and now you go start it. Ooh, fired right up, look at that. All the extra coolant that you have, dump into the reservoir, because it's gonna be empty. The car sounds great, everything's all bled, no air in the system, heater works nice. Cap back on, this back down. Remember, they barely had any clips here, guys. I know you've seen that in the video, so this is good. Now that was a quick $50. Job well done.